Hey English 101 students, Professor Norman here, wanting to give you a little check-in for the second half of week one. This video kind of takes the place of what would be our second class if we were meeting face-to-face. Obviously, it's not nearly the same, but it's my hope that just by explaining a few things, kind of hitting some of the highlights or reminders or, giving you some updates if any updates are coming in, that it will be useful for you just as we try and finish up the week strong. So as far as this week goes, it's really a week where we're just trying to get used to things, right? Just kind of figuring out the routine and figuring out, where I'm supposed to go, how I'm supposed to do these things. And it's weird when it's online because, all of it can look very samey. So just a reminder, when we're doing things for the English 101 class through Blackboard, you always want to find yourself going to the weekly assignments folder, that section of the site, and then finding the week that's appropriate for the week. It's week one for us. And then at the top of that folder will be the tasks to complete for that week. So the weekly overview will always be at the top, and it'll just tell you, it'll list it all out for you so that you can make your own kind of checklist and cross things off as you get done with them. And our task for this week is to get task 1.1, which is the read the syllabus and attend class or watch the class. Get 1.1 through 1.6, which is the Douglas discussion board, which I'll talk about in just a second here. Get those all done by the end of the day on Sunday night. We'll follow that weekly schedule pretty regularly, if you remember from our class that we had a couple of days ago, where Monday morning is when the unit will start, and it can go, and sometimes there'll be a deadline kind of on Wednesday to get like 1 or 2 or 3, maybe about half of the week's worth of work done by Wednesday, and then the other half needs to be done by Sunday. And that just helps with the pacing a little bit. So that's our task. You'll see that next week, and this will all become, I think, very familiar as we do it. Within 2 or 3 weeks, you'll be a pro at this. You'll know exactly what's going on, and I know it's always a little bit different. I'm sure your different professors are doing it differently, but hopefully this will make sense. I did want to take just a moment to talk about the the last 3 tasks for the week: 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6. Those all relate to a story from our textbook here, Reading the World. Although I have linked it. If you don't have Reading the World yet, I've linked the story on our Blackboard site in the block for 1.4. Yes, 1.4. It's a story called Learning to Read by Frederick Douglass. Now, if you don't know who Frederick Douglass is, he's a very, very interesting, very important figure as far as race relations and slavery, abolishment, and just fighting for the rights of that population and against the evils of slavery. There's a lot to learn from this brief little excerpt, which is only a few pages long. It's only about 5 pages long in the textbook. Very quick, easy to read. It's a narrative story, so it's Douglass, an excerpt from his autobiography, telling the story of how he learned to read and write while he was still a slave. So it's an amazing story of overcoming obstacles. In fact, here's what I want to do. I just want to give you just a little heads up, okay? The 3 assignments, one is just to read it. Another is a very simple little worksheet thing. It's set up as a test, but it's open book, and it's got no time limit on it. So you don't, use your book to find the answers, or use the article link to find the answers. Don't worry about it. Just take each question, take a few minutes to find the answer, and put it in. Easy points there. And then the last task is a discussion. And this is a pretty hands-off discussion. I'm not going to make you respond back to any of your peers, although if you want to, you could probably get a couple of bonus points. But what I really wanted you to do is just think about the very important question: how does this reading impact you? Okay, and you're like, okay, this text that comes from almost 200 years ago, at least 150 years ago now, and it's about slavery, and you're like, okay, well, I mean, like, is that what I'm supposed to be thinking of? And don't get me wrong, if you find comparisons in that, please, feel free to engage in that. But here's the thing that I think is really important as far as Douglass goes. The story of Frederick Douglass is one about perseverance. It's about determination. It's about overcoming obstacles. And so while I especially do not have nearly as many obstacles that I had to overcome in my learning, as Frederick Douglass did in his, right? I mean, it's just insane, so unfair. But one thing that is true is that we all, each of us individually, run up against obstacles, run up against these, these walls in our life where it seems like the thing that we want to do isn't possible or someone's not going to let us do it. And in Frederick Douglass's case, he was literally facing, enslavement. Slavery was legal. He was breaking the law to learn to read and to write, basically. And so he overcame that, right? He persevered. That's the amazing story. That's the great example that he gives each of us. No matter what our skin color is or what our experiences are, we always have to ask ourselves, okay, if he can do that, then I have to ask myself, are the obstacles that I'm facing, are they as important or as tough to overcome as that? As literally having to, escape slavery to be able to learn to read and write? Probably not. Now, I'm not going to say absolutely not because I don't know everybody's story, and I'm sure that there is still slavery in the world. I don't know where you guys come from. There might be, some of you guys especially that come from certain parts of the world where, there are still, really awful things happening. And hey, the United States of America is not perfect either. So, I mean, we all have a very interesting background and a lot going on in our lives. So I would never say absolutely, but for the majority of us, I think we can all agree that, compared to what Frederick Douglass went through, things like me, like, oh, I don't want to do this because I'm going to be really, really tired. I'm going to have to stay up really late to get this assignment done. That doesn't really compare. So I want you guys to think about that. I really want you guys to think about that as you read through this story. Just think about all the creativity that he had to use to try and learn to read and write, all the perseverance, the boldness, the braveness, the courage that he demonstrated there. And it really puts things into perspective, or at least it sure has for me, every year that I've had to read it and then reread it as I teach it for this class. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're reading this story, and I think that you'll find something very interesting from it. We're going to use it a lot throughout the first couple of weeks of the semester for a couple of small assignments this week, and then for a bigger assignment next week, which I'll tell you guys about when we get to it. But I think that's where I'm going to leave it all for right now. Good luck as you're finishing up this first week. Reach out to me with any questions. You can email me at mnorman@vinu.edu. Or remember that I do have office hours. As I'm recording this on Thursday, I just have one office hour left, and it's at 1 o'clock on Friday. But then again, if you need to, us to set up a quick Zoom meeting or something like that, we can totally do that too. So that's all I've got for you guys this week. Good luck finishing it up. Stay safe and stay healthy and stay as positive as possible. And I'll talk to you guys next week.